Just north of San Francisco lies a volcano disguised as a lake, and it's still alive. A serene facade masking a primal force that has shaped destinies, cultures, and landscapes for millennia. Beneath peaceful waters and rolling vineyards lies a ticking time bomb, a volcanic system powerful enough to black out cities, choke the skies with ash, and trap tens of thousands with almost no warning, evoking the raw emotion of living on borrowed time from Earth's fiery heart. Clear Lake doesn't look like a volcano. There's no towering peak, no snow-capped cone. Instead, it hides in plain sight: hills, forests, and a massive lake that attracts tourists and campers every year. But this calm landscape is deceiving. Beneath the surface sits a magma chamber that is very much alive. Scientists rank Clear Lake as one of the highest threat volcanic systems in the entire country. And yet, most people driving along Highway 29 have no idea they're crossing a volcanic field capable of changing life across Northern California in a single day. To infuse this with heartfelt depth, consider the indigenous Pomo peoples who've called this land home for over 11,800 years. The Zaban Napo Band, who named the lake Hokhazha, Kabatin, and Lupioma, viewing its steaming vents as sacred portals connecting the physical and spiritual worlds. Their ancient stories whisper of creation and caution, but tragedy struck in 1849 with the Bloody Island Massacre, where U.S. soldiers slaughtered hundreds of Pomo, mostly women and children, in a heartbreaking chapter of displacement that still echoes in community resilience and calls for cultural reclamation today. This cultural tapestry adds an emotional layer, reminding us that Clear Lake isn't just a geological marvel. It's a living heritage, scarred yet sacred, where human stories intertwine with the land's volatile spirit. So, how do scientists know this volcano is still alive? The answer lies in the whispers rising from the ground. At first glance, Clear Lake looks calm. Families boat across its waters. Tourists hike its trails. But the ground tells a different story. Steam vents hiss near the shoreline, releasing superheated vapor into the air. Pockets of toxic gases bubble silently through the water, invisible hazards that can suffocate wildlife or people without warning. And just a few miles away, the Earth's heat is so intense that power plants have tapped it to generate electricity, creating the largest geothermal energy field on Earth. That energy is not harmless. It's powered directly by magma still stirring below the surface. In other words, this volcano isn't dead, it's breathing. To scientists, these aren't background noises. They're signs of unrest, a restless system quietly releasing pressure. But history has shown that when pressure builds faster than it can escape, volcanoes don't whisper, they explode. And this isn't just a local curiosity. Some of the deadliest eruptions in history, from Iceland's Laki eruption to Mount Pinatubo in the Philippines, started with small gas releases and steam vents, only to escalate into regional catastrophes. Clear Lake's biggest threat isn't just what's under it, it's what surrounds it. The entire region is laced with fault lines, fractures in the earth that shift and grind under enormous pressure. Just to the west runs the San Andreas Fault, infamous for tearing through California with magnitude 7 and 8 earthquakes. To the south, the Hayward and Rogers Creek faults creep beneath crowded suburbs of the Bay Area. These aren't isolated cracks. They're connected, part of a deadly network transferring stress like dominoes waiting to fall. Scientists warn that a strong earthquake on any of these faults could rattle Clear Lake's volcanic system, shaking its magma chamber and pushing it closer to eruption. And history shows why this matters. In Iceland, a major quake once destabilized nearby volcanoes, triggering eruptions within weeks. In the Philippines, Mount Pinatubo rumbled after swarms of earthquakes struck in the months before its 1991 explosion. In California, earthquakes and volcanoes are not separate threats. They're partners in disaster. A jolt along the San Andreas may not just damage freeways and homes. It could be the spark that wakes a hidden giant. But even if the ground stays quiet, Clear Lake hides another danger: one that can kill silently without a single eruption. Volcanoes don't need fire and lava to kill. Sometimes they suffocate. Clear Lake is saturated with volcanic gases. Carbon dioxide and hydrogen sulfide seep quietly through its waters and surrounding soil. They have no color, no warning smell, but in high concentrations, they can suffocate animals, or even people in seconds. Around the world, gas disasters have struck without a single eruption. In Cameroon, an invisible cloud of carbon dioxide once burst from a lake, rolling down into nearby villages and killing more than 700 people in a single night. Clear Lake has the same type of chemistry, a hidden hazard sitting beside thousands of residents. And unlike lava flows, you can't outrun gas. You don't see it coming. One moment the air is normal, the next, it's deadly. This is why scientists don't rank Clear Lake as a sleeping system. The danger isn't just an eruption. It's a combination of threats: earthquakes, gases, magma, and people living right on top of it. And if this volcano does erupt, the first signs won't look like a Hollywood movie. They'll look like steam, boiling water, and small blasts that give almost no time to escape. If Clear Lake erupts, it might not begin with a massive explosion. The U.S. Geological Survey warns that the first sign could be something far more subtle: a phreatic blast. That's when rising magma superheats underground water, turning it to steam so violently that the ground itself rips apart. These explosions can launch boiling rocks, mud, and debris into the air, raining down on anyone nearby with almost no time to flee. But USGS models also show the potential for larger eruptions. Thousands of years ago, the same volcanic field built Mount Konocti through repeated explosions and lava flows, a majestic peak revered by the Pomo as a spiritual guardian. Its name meaning mountain woman in their language, symbolizing fertility and power in ancient lore. A modern repeat could send ash plumes tens of thousands of feet into the sky, grounding aircraft across Northern California and blanketing the Bay Area in fine volcanic dust. The geography makes it worse. Highway 29, the main evacuation route, runs directly through the volcanic field. A sudden blast could block or bury the road, trapping entire towns like Clear Lake, Lower Lake, and Kelseyville. And the USGS is blunt. Clear Lake is ranked as a high-threat volcanic system, not because it erupts often, but because when it does, the consequences could be immediate, violent, and widespread. But the fallout wouldn't stop at Lake County. The right eruption here could ripple outward, shutting down daily life across all of Northern California. If Clear Lake erupts, the impact won't stay local. Less than 100 miles south lies the Bay Area, home to millions of people and one of the busiest economic hubs in America. USGS hazard models show how even a moderate eruption could send volcanic ash drifting into San Francisco, Oakland, and Sacramento. Bridges, airports, and power lines could all be choked with fine, abrasive dust. Jet engines clog. Solar panels stop working. Power stations spark with failure. Flights across the West Coast could be grounded within hours. And it's not just ash. The same magma that fuels Clear Lake also powers the Geysers, the largest geothermal energy complex on Earth. In normal times, those plants generate electricity for nearly 1 million Californians, a legacy dating back to Native American use of the hot springs for healing and ceremonies, evolving into a 19th century tourist haven before becoming a powerhouse in the 1960s. In a volcanic crisis, they could become liabilities. Pipelines might rupture, turbines could seize, and high-voltage transmission lines could fail, plunging entire regions into blackout. Right when power and communication would be most critical, emergency planners fear a chain reaction. Highways clogged with evacuees, airports shut down, power grids collapsing, and hundreds of thousands of people stranded in a state of chaos. And the scariest part, Clear Lake's next eruption might not give weeks of warning. It could escalate in a matter of hours. Socially and economically, this vulnerability hits hard in a region where the lake drives tourism and livelihoods. boating festivals, wine country escapes, and communities like Kelseyville, whose name painfully recalls the 19th century settlers involved in the Pomo massacres. Now, a hub for reflection and reconciliation efforts amid growing calls to honor indigenous history. An eruption could shatter this delicate balance, crippling local economies tied to the lake's beauty, while testing the resilience forged from generations of living with nature's whims. If Clear Lake does erupt again, scientists believe it won't begin with lava fountains or fiery explosions. The first signs will be subtle, easy to miss unless you're watching closely. It could start with a swarm of small earthquakes beneath the lake, hundreds of tremors rippling through the crust in rapid succession. To geologists, these are the footsteps of magma on the move. At the same time, gas monitors might detect sudden spikes of carbon dioxide and hydrogen sulfide rising from the ground. These invisible gases can displace oxygen, turning the air toxic in pockets where people live, work, or play. And then come the steam vents, new holes tearing open in the earth, hissing vapor that burns at the touch. On the surface, it might just look like a crack in the dirt or a pool of boiling mud. But underground, it's a sign that magma is rising, pushing closer to eruption. The most terrifying part, these warning signs might unfold over weeks, or they might collapse into explosive activity in just a few hours. For the people living around Clear Lake, that means there may be no real time to flee. And even with all of today's monitoring technology, scientists admit they can't guarantee enough warning, which means the only real defense is preparedness. Preparedness is the only shield residents have. But here's the problem. California's escape plan is fragile. The main evacuation lifeline, Highway 29, cuts directly across the volcanic field. A sudden blast could bury the road in rockfalls and landslides, trapping entire towns with no way out. Picture thousands of cars locked in gridlock while ash begins to fall. Evacuation turns into entrapment. And it wouldn't stop there. Clear Lake's water systems supply communities across the region. Ashfall could contaminate reservoirs, clog treatment plants, and leave tens of thousands without safe drinking water. At the same time, power grids would be collapsing. Remember the Geysers geothermal field? In a crisis, pipelines could rupture and turbines could fail, plunging homes and hospitals into blackout. Without power, there's no communication, no internet, no emergency alerts. USGS models show how quickly this can spiral: clogged highways, grounded flights, and cascading failures of water and energy systems. In short, a single eruption at Clear Lake wouldn't just destroy part of Lake County, it could paralyze Northern California. And the most chilling truth, Clear Lake is what scientists call a stealth volcano. Hidden, overlooked, and easy to ignore until it's too late. Clear Lake doesn't look like a volcano. There's no towering peak, no snow-capped cone on the horizon. That's what makes it so dangerous. It's a stealth volcano, hiding in plain sight. Scientists at the USGS say the magma chamber beneath Clear Lake is still active, still restless, and still capable of erupting again. The only unknown is when. It could be centuries from now, or it could begin tomorrow with a swarm of earthquakes, a sudden spike in gas, or a steam blast tearing open the ground. And if it happens, it won't just threaten Lake County. The chain reaction could ripple across the Bay Area, disrupting airports, highways, power grids, and water systems that millions of people depend on every single day. That's why Clear Lake is terrifying, not because it erupts often, but because when it finally does, the impact could spread far beyond the lake itself, challenging the bonds of communities that have thrived here through triumph and tragedy. So, here's the question. If Clear Lake woke up tomorrow, would California be ready? Or would it catch millions completely off guard? Let me know what you think in the comments. And if you want to see the other hidden volcanoes scientists are watching across America, make sure you're subscribed because this story is far from over.